You've completed a search and have millions of results listed. What do you do now? Don't assume the links at the top of the list are always the best. Often, those top spots are actually advertisements or from companies that paid a lot of money to have their website show up first. It's up to you to examine the results and make a judgment call as to whether the sources are trustworthy, reliable, and relevant. How do you do this? It's not as hard as you might think. First, determine the site's purpose. Is it intended to inform, perhaps entertain, maybe even influence the audience, or sell something? Look at the website's URL and domain name. The last 3 letters after the dot sometimes reflect a website's purpose. Sites ending with .edu are from educational institutions, which are often considered more trustworthy. Same goes for websites that use .gov, as they're from government agencies. .com websites are mostly companies doing commerce, but that can mean just about anything. Some may try to sell something or push an agenda, but others may be purely for news and information. .net sites are from information and technology companies, and .org represents nonprofit or charitable organizations. These guidelines aren't foolproof, and there are exceptions, but it's a good start for examining a website's purpose. Now let's look at the author, who owns and is responsible for the website's content. Sometimes, the author might be listed at the top, next to, or near the site's title. If not, try checking the bottom of the page. If you can find the author's name, do they also list their education and experience? You want to be sure that whoever created the content is an expert in the field. What about sites that don't include an author? Can you still use and trust a site that doesn't tell you who wrote the content? You can, but you should try to check for trustworthiness using some of the other ideas we discuss in this video. Depending on your research topic, you may need to check how recently the information was written or updated. Just like looking for an author, you might have to hunt around for a date. Sometimes it says date of publication or last updated. Why is the date important? Many topics in science and current events rely heavily on using the most recent information. You wouldn't want to use a source that categorizes Pluto as a planet in any research about our solar system. However, some information is not affected by the currency of the source. For example, the Declaration of Independence was adopted on July 4th, 1776. That fact is static, so it doesn't matter if the source is recent or 100 years old. One thing you always want to be sure of is that the information is accurate. Where did the author find their facts? Look for any references or citations on the site. These might be listed at the bottom of the page, or a link might take you to a full works cited or reference list. You can also compare the information from the website to your other sources. Is the information similar to what you found elsewhere? This is called corroboration, and it's always a good idea to corroborate your information using multiple sources. Finally, remember to check for bias. Bias is a leaning in favor of or against an idea or a thing. Look for objective sources that aren't trying to persuade you one way or the other. Or try to find sources where multiple perspectives are presented in a balanced way. If something's extremely skewed in one direction, that's a red flag, and you should look for a better option. You'll rarely find completely unbiased sources, and that's okay. It's more important to identify the bias and be aware of it. Making these judgment calls may seem like a lot of work, but it gets easier with practice. In fact, the more often you do it, you'll begin to check for these things almost automatically. Finding high-quality sources will save you time, and you'll feel more confident in your work.